Wait, she's who? Sitting in Alrada's office, Hannah knew her outburst had come out without thinking, but at least she remembered not to gape and closed her mouth. This was her first day of work? The virtual ink on her electronic job offer was barely dry. Where was the training? The coffee and donuts pep talk? Jeez, where was the cool trench coat? But no, a look at Alrada's face told her all she needed to know. He wasn't kidding. Melondi Sandoka, the woman hanging around Vadim and bussing discarded barbecue chicken wings off empty tables, she was an imperial princess. The one on the stage last night. Her first thoughts battered at her disbelief. The one who took over the commencement address. The one who... Her second thoughts took over as her brain switched gears. The one Solana's trying to edge out of Vadim Desari's life like a battering ram. All of which was pointless, as far as Alrada Caldrice was concerned. Her third thoughts rallied as her brain focused on the problem. Dad was right. It was just a case of seeing it from the other person's point of view. Talk about not being around due to family obligations. As sneaking around went, it put going to the movies with Bobby Reynolds to shame. Her partner, that was maybe her partner, after she made it through training, Jalissa, just looked at her and gave a "welcome to our world, what are you gonna do" kind of shrug that eloquently crossed the human Shulvanti barrier. Alrada had no such reservations, and training or not, he was her new boss. I admit that we're throwing you in the deep end, but you merely have to be yourself. He spread his hands as if it was the easiest thing in the world. Tell us now what you think of her personally. Persons who rely on our organization are already putting out feelers for intelligence on the young princess after her benediction at the commencement address. A timely report on her character will stand us in good stead. I think she could kill my idiot brother, was the first thought that ran through her mind, but it was swiftly chased by her second. If she doesn't kill Solana first. Her third thoughts got the better of both and throttled them before she spoke. Isn't she protected against that kind of thing? Death's heads? Orbital space lasers? You know, unleash the pack of vicious dogs? Miss McClendon, do be serious, Alrada sniffed. It's only the Death's heads. I have no intention whatsoever of lending out our Great Danes. They're the only ones on the planet. I'm in a brothel, and I saw that Rakiri. Why froze on her lips. That left when, where, and who, which Alrada explained was as soon as she got back to the Pelavon house. And, oh, right, the how. So, I'm just supposed to watch her and act normal, plus avoiding the security cameras, when I don't know where they are? Besides, spying on a princess? There's got to be some level of treason if I get caught, right? At this point, I believe it's something of an open secret between ourselves and the Interior. A tacit agreement, if you will, though I'm uncertain of its limitations. Discretion will be your friend. Alrada waved at the air breezily. Come now, Miss McClendon. The Death's Heads might take some persuasion, and it would be a shame to ruin your family's vacation. If you can't be yourself around your own family, where can you? You haven't met my father. I did, actually. Charming fellow. Looks wonderful in crepe. Let me rephrase that. You don't know my father. Hannah huffed. Dad wasn't the main problem, though. Mom would ask her how her first day went. Why was she back from her first day so soon? There would be questions. It wasn't like she could say, "It was great, I just need to spy on Vadim's girlfriend. You know, the one with the empire?" Don't worry, I'll handle it. But seriously, how am I supposed to know where the cameras are? You just finished telling me they're all over. Ah, well, as to that, you raise a perfectly valid issue. Alrada smiled. I believe you've met Zinshiki Natasha. Scary black cat girl? Pezrin. Always looks like she's going to kill you in your sleep. Hannah sorted her thoughts out, and they all agreed it was a good description.
I've met her. She's Deshin's.
Hannah fumbled her way through the mass of conjugations for a male third cousin by a second-degree co-wife, not related by blood, to an adopted...
She's some sort of arranged relative.
Yes, Pairs-in relationships are rather elaborate, you see. I've had a considerable education in that over the years.
Alrada smiled ruefully, looking entirely too harmless just 5 minutes after telling her, "The knives are out, go stand in the crossfire and look innocent." He carried on without missing a beat. "As it is, you'll have a contact with the Typal who is..." Alrada's desk omni chimed, and he reached down to buzz his door open.
"Ah, here we are. Miss McClendon, I'd like you to meet your contact. He'll be in touch with you over the coming days and can point out the security cameras. You might say he has a knack for it."
Hannah looked over at the figure that glided through the door and swallowed. Silhouetted in the door and standing nearly 6 foot something, he looked like a lion. His fur was jet black with a white stripe down the front, and unlike Shilvanti Guy's, he was very, very male.
"His name is Past," Jalissa smiled. "You'll be having him for dinner." "Having him for dinner? That doesn't sound half as wrong as it should," said her first thoughts.
Her second thoughts were busy looking over the muscles. If Zenshiki looked like a dream girl out of some gothic anime, Past looked... well... The being in front of her had the appearance of a sable marine coon. His dark mane would have looked at home on Fabio, and his muscles looked like they had muscles. Hannah gulped, then fought the urge to giggle when she spotted the bow tie.
"I'm very pleased to meet you."
She had risen and bumped fists when a thought whispered in her ear.
I know we just met, and this will probably sound really weird, but could you show me your teeth?"
The Pairs-in looked at Alrada, who merely looked bemused, and after a moment Past drew back his lips, revealing a mouthful of razor-sharp fangs. "Like is?"
"Oh, yeah,"
Hannah smiled. Who needed training to deal with her family? She managed that much for years.
"I can't wait to introduce you to my brother Eli."
Badin coughed, waving away the smoke. Thankfully, everyone dived on the fire before the detectors went off. Having a fire alarm drive everyone off into the night was not what they needed. Yes, a cook had to experiment, and it hired 6 more in the hope of expanding human food to a second location. Yes, they were proving to be a gift from the goddess with all the additional holiday traffic. It was still early, but for the first time since the bad press from the Northern Palace, the dining room was packed with customers. But no, one of them just had to try using one of the original recipes that had come from Earth, and he had to explain that spaghetti should not catch fire. With luck, the smoke would clear away, otherwise he'd be smelling it in his ascot all night. It was a playful print in faux fur that cascaded down to his waistcoat. The glittering puce on sage green was just the thing for the season. Nothing revealing, but festive, and the Chateauroussi shirt had the loveliest frills. He looked marvellous.
"Boss?"
Corlin, one of his better waitresses, stuck her head in his office.
"Boss, there's a woman at table 6 who wants to meet you."
"Of course she does." Panic gripped him as he checked the mirror, checking for makeup smudges. "Can't you see I'm busy?"
"I know, boss, but you said to get you for one of the special customers. I really think you need to see her."
Bodine whirled around and looked at Corlin and sniffed. If it was anyone else... But no, Corlin was experienced. If it was anyone else... Fine, fine. He paused, looking her over. "And what is that you're wearing?"
"It's a ruff."
Corlin looked down.
"It's Cracks Day and..."
"I can see it's a ruff." Bodine bounced up and down on the balls of his feet before giving Corlin his full attention. "It's the holidays. No one wants to see people in black and white. It's dour, drab, no pizzazz. You're bringing the tone down.
Sorry, it's just...
Let me set the mood for you here.
Bodine flung his hands out as he stepped in beside Corlan. He was a good man, but sometimes people needed his expertise.
It's a holiday. We need to show sex. Appetizers. Sex. Nobles. Sex. Entrees. Cutting edge. Sex. Attitude.
Goddess love her, Corlan got it, nodding with a growing excitement. No prisoners. We're the sluts bringing the hot cuisine.
Yes. Yes.
Bodine nodded emphatically, yet struck a pose suitable to the solemn gravity of the matter.
But always with lovely shoes.
Corlan's head bobbled rapidly, and yes, her shoes were a predatory little affair, with flared tops and silver glitter. The blue satin bows along the buttons were a nice touch.
Table 6?
He asked firmly. He was sure it was 6, but it never hurt to check with a full house. Corlan nodded. All of that faded into the background as he approached the table. Not that he could have missed her amidst the colourful throng of holiday-goers out in their Ifrovi finest. Everyone was talking and laughing over their meals, doubtless planning the rest of their evenings out. She sat there, bolt upright in a boxy jacket the colour of graphite. Naturally, he looked stunning, but her eyes were on him the moment he stepped into the dining room. "And you, I believe, are the formidable Bodine Desari," she smiled as he drew near, before casually waving a hand. As one, the customers in the dining room rose and filed towards the exit without a word. All of them. "Forgive me for taking advantage of your online reservation system, but it's considerably easier for me to expend money than time." Bodine took a moment to register the evacuation before rounding on the woman. Corlan had said one of the special customers, but that was reserved for royalty, duchesses, people from his former employ, and... "My name is Lorem Raylin." She offered her fist. In her other hand she held up an identity card, which fluoresced a brilliant purple when she touched it. Only one sort of person carried those. "Pleased to make your acquaintance." "I assure you, my identification is above reproof," she said, after allowing him a moment to look at the card. "The penalty for forgeries are rather nasty, and far from brief."
"I'm sure I wouldn't know. I've just never seen one before."
That was true enough, although Raylin was right. No one lied about being with the Interior. Acting in the Empress's name, the offences for false identification made nasty an understatement. He flounced fetchingly without taking his eyes off her.
"Can I take your order? I'm suddenly out of customers."
"You'll find they paid in advance, with generous gratuities for your staff." She gestured toward the chair opposite her with a nod that was more direct than an invitation. "Please, be seated."
"I'm flattered."
He batted his eyebrows, but still sat down. There was being coy, and there was pushing it. In truth, he'd been expecting something ever since his son revealed he was being courted by a princess. Not this, but still.
"How do I address you? I've never met a senior agent before, much less a minister."
Raylin smiled. "They aren't all like me." Bodine found himself thanking the goddess for small favours.
"Somehow I don't imagine that they are."
"For a substantial period before going independent as a celebrity chef, you were employed at the tide pool. The only notable interruption was your marriage of 3 years, 5 months, and 45 days. You are the father of one Vadim Desari." Raylin cocked her head ever so slightly to one side. "And you've never remarried?"
"You know how to make an impression, but isn't this showy, just for me?"
Bodine smiled winsomely. It seemed prudent, since the meeting could have involved electricity and a wet sponge had she deemed it in her interests. For that matter, it still could. She settled back, appraising him unflinchingly. "Your greatest fear, Mr. Dasari?" she asked suddenly, her voice flat and bereft of inflection. "I presume it's not marriage." Badin refrained from licking his lips. Direct and to the point, then. The kind of rapid-fire questioning meant to throw someone off, trip them up. Fortunately, he had experience in that sort of game. "Losing my son." "Greatest strength," Raylan fired off without missing a beat. "I look fabulous." "Greatest weakness." He gave her a fetching moo. "Some might say it's the same thing." "It's always nice to meet people who live up to expectations. It's something of a novelty." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You evidently understand why I'm here. If you could turn back time and have none of this happen, would you?" "No," he said firmly. Whatever else was in play, this was his son's life to live. "If I had the power to sever relations between our two parties, would you have me do it?" "No." Vadim was happy. In love. While his own experience had been far different, Melondi seemed so much more real than his wife ever had. A person, not a title. "No, I would not." "And why not?" Badin stalled. What could he say to that? The parties involved were an imperial princess and his son. He knew where he stood on Vadim's happiness, but he'd been out of the game for years now. Who could have imagined, of all the people to walk into his son's life, it would be someone at this sort of level? He hadn't shielded the boy, but the odds against such a liaison were... "You were doing so well, Mr. Dasari, yet you froze up." She shook her head slightly, as if he'd disappointed her. "No matter. Personal matters get the best of us. That's rather the point." "Can I ask you some questions, Minister?" Badin swept a hand back through his hair. It was a casual gesture that had nothing to do with his blood having frozen in his veins. "Questions like you just asked me?" Raylin's smile was a model of economy. "Let's say free. As I explained, my time is at a premium." "What's your biggest fear?" The woman had barely moved since he sat down, her face inscrutable. It seemed as good a place to start as any. "The past." "As in my background?" It was a guess, but it seemed as good as any. She'd come to see him, with all that implied. "Precisely." She barely canted her head. He had the impression she hadn't even blinked. "One question left." Badin did lick his lips then. He had the sudden feeling this might be the one and only time he'd ever meet this woman. That the one question before him was all that he had, or ever would have. This was about him, but it was also about his son. As Vadim's father, he had the right to know. "Do you actually have that power, Minister? How did you put it? To sever relations between our two parties?" Raylin might have arched an eyebrow. It seemed her turn to pause. "I appear to have overpromised my time for this evening, Mr. Dasari. Thank you for your hospitality." She uncrossed her hands before rising smoothly from the table. "Joyous Ivrovi." Badin watched her leave, without a word to stop her. After a long day of ignoring the girls' wedding preparations, Tom rewarded himself by settling back on the oversized couch with the buffet spread out in front of them. It wasn't the wedding that was putting him off. He simply didn't want it to spiral out of control with more ridiculous ideas of human traditions. The less input he had, the better. No exotic dancers. No one popping out of the wedding cake. Just a normal, not nude, Shulvanti wedding. After hearing about the game from Desi, he just wanted to enjoy part of Ivrovi by staying in from the parties, kicking back and watching Mavere, Shalea, and Solani were all set with drinks and snacks, though the Pluva pops and the thing on Solani's plate didn't merit close inspection. Being set involved parking a small mountain of food for the girls. While knowing about their metabolism for years, it was something else to see it with 3 Shorvanti women. Miv and Leia were supermodel thin, yet their snack was more than he ate for a full meal. As for Solani, well, she worked out hard, and while the pile on her plate was the same size, she'd definitely go back for thirds. Small wonder human women still grass about the shell. Tom had established control of the remote, finished the popcorn, and settled in to flip on the game. The tournament was being televised on one of the hundreds of networks, avoiding a trip out into the crowded streets. As it came on, a well-dressed threesome were there on the screen representing the different factions for the tournament. A Shorvanti, a night crew, and... Tom's mind boggled. The woman's upper half was very definitely female, but her lower half? You wouldn't mistake it for a horse close up, but in a certain light. Is that a centaur? Not necessarily seen at this level, Emick, the Shorvanti woman said with a gleam in her eye. We're talking tier 6 matches to start. Hard-hitting, heavily armoured, but it still takes a whole lot of options off the board for our full field of combat effectives. That's a Yahtzee. There aren't many of them outside the Alliance, Solani supplied. She was still fidgeting over, sitting next to him as the new girl in the relationship. Suddenly, she giggled. Trust me, you don't want to be with one. Completely agree, Carre. Silhouetted in her own bioluminescence, the night crew nodded. Now, for those at home, here are the lineups as the teams get ready to deploy. Huh? That's right, Cassell. We also have special goodies if you text in now with the code beep. Tom hit mute, drowning out the chatter from the announcers. Word is they like to go on a brisk 5-mile run before sex. Solani winked to Shalea. Please don't get him started. Leia shook her head, smirking. Particularly now, Miv nodded, peering up at them from over her pad. It's bad luck to talk about other women before your honeymoon. You kind of had to deal with me. Solani squirmed awkwardly. As the talk was turning back to weddings, Tom took a renewed interest in looking over the stats. That was on the honeymoon, not before. The girls were there in Sector 2 of the game board, and while he didn't know anyone else on the team, it seemed like a well-rounded battle group to his eye. To a gamer's eye, the girls had a balanced team with enough firepower to level a planet. I knew you did combat games after the war simulation, but that was moderating. Solani sat back, contentedly munching on something that looked suspiciously like emerald green potato chips. I didn't know you played, though. Never tried this one, but I love strategy games. Tom licked some butter from his fingertips. This is sort of educational. Mavere looked up from her book. You're serious about the extra credit, aren't you? Yup, Tom nodded with a cheeky grin, and gave Miv a wink. With no real interest in gaming, she'd given up her space beside him to Solani. She smiled before going back to her book. Leia sipped her drink and sprinkled more salt on her popcorn. Shorvanti seemed to have a higher tolerance for it, and separate bowls had become a must. While she had no real interest in the game, she huddled in close. Tom knew he'd miss her, back at the house after the holiday was over. What's the extra credit for? Leia asked after finishing a mouthful. Let's call it secret extra credit, but only if the girls win. Les's group looked solid, but so did the other team. They'd gone in with only one battleship, but the bulk of their fleet was heavy cruisers, giving them speed and firepower. The points totals were even, so the real question was what everyone brought to the table. Leia cocked her head. What if they lose? Nothing. Tom wiped his hands and slipped an arm around Leia and Solani. I've been teaching the girls to question basic assumptions, instead of just accepting them. Just curious to see if it took. Eli considered another red grain, but set it back in the fridge. He wasn't into drinking all that often. If nothing else, Dad's stories seemed a lot less like a challenge, and a lot more like a warning to others. He had it pretty good, all things considered. Fucking it up over a few extra drinks? That was not going to be his thing. Still, he'd screwed up. Levi and the girls were pissed. Solana and her sisters were out too, with Lagos and Jasserin. They'd embarked on some sort of heavyweight shopping expedition that sounded like a cure for insomnia, so no loss there, but they still hadn't invited him. Hannah was still out at her interview, which pretty much left him all alone. It was damn late for an interview. She wouldn't leave, but I probably should say something nice, he mused, as he wandered past the kids' room. At first, he wondered if she'd said she had an interview just to get his goat, but telling Mum and Dad? No. Hannah could push back hard, but she'd never worry them just to get back at him. Odds are the shrimp won't get it, but rubbing it in would just be mean. No. The best way to fix things was lay low, stay home tonight, and make amends by watching the Rugrats. Josh and Cassie were already out like a light, so it wasn't exactly hard. Give it a couple of years and he might think twice, but at their age, it was as easy as it got. Eli wandered around and found himself staring out at the pool. Even if he had to stay in, the Helcom girls were only a call away. Keeping them primed for a night out seemed like a good idea. It wouldn't be so bad to just go skinny dipping. The air was damn cold outside, but the pool was heated, and the water steamed in the patio lights. Easy enough to send some selfies. He didn't need to lay low for the whole trip, and a pic or two wouldn't hurt. After all, you were only a tease if you didn't pick up the goods. He was just about to go outside when he heard the front door. The pool could wait, and he padded toward the front door in time to see Solana tossing a fur-trimmed dress over the back of the couch. He leaned against the doorway and whistled. Solana snorted once. "What's up, loser? Living large on babysitter duty?" "Sup, cocktease? Just calling my jets," he shrugged. "What about you? How's it feel to be normal again?" "Normal?" Solana asked absently, as she dug through her bag. "Yeah, like, just one more woman in the crowd, having to face the competition." He grinned, flexing one arm to show off some muscle. "Be nice and we could go swimming. What do you say?" Solana glanced up before returning to the bag. "Pass. Vadim might come home." "Big deal. He's okay, but you aren't really going to waste the whole trip chasing him, are you?" Eli pursed his lips. "I mean, seriously, is it normal for shildoos to never smile when you're flirting with them? This is the capital world. You could be looking for guys who are actually fun." "This isn't about fun, dumbass," Solana glared, putting the dress up against her body. "This is about growing up." Eli blinked in spite of himself. The dress was, in fact, mostly fur, and there wasn't a whole lot of it. Imagining her wearing it did things. "You put that on and I'll show you some growing up." He bit his lip with a predatory smile. "Sounds like you'll like it then." She stuck her tongue out, her voice thick with exasperation. "This isn't like collecting nudes and keeping score. This is about my future." "There's nothing wrong with collecting nudes or your future." Those Helcom girls would certainly appreciate them, and the Dixie chick. He slouched away from the doorframe and ambled over for a better look at the dress. She set it down, regarding him coolly. "We aren't teenagers anymore, Eli." "We're on shill. There are thousands of guys going out tonight. You could be out there having fun with people who are actually excited to be with you." He put on his best grin. "Hell, you can be Sweet 16 all over again." "This isn't about fun. I have my future to think about, and not one working for my co-mother." Solana spat at him fiercely. Look, I've been talking to Trixis, okay? She thinks that Vadim is a great match for me, and honestly, she's right. Eli looked at the dress again. It would definitely get a guy's attention, though with a Shulvanti, it was good odds she throws her tits off first. Still, if people got even more worked up over it, at least it wouldn't be at him. He watched as she took out a little spritzer and misted it over the front of the dress before. He sniffed. There was the barest whiff of, "Is that mint?" Eli stared. "Are you crazy? Your dad's gonna kill you." "Not unless you tattle on me." Solana stuck her tongue out at him. "Relax. It's so diluted it can only give you a buzz. I'm just playing to win. This is just to make sure I get his attention so he forgets about little Miss Schoolgirl." "That's not playing the game. That's fucked up," Eli growled, crossing his arms. "Not cool. Like, at all. Vadim hasn't even said he's interested in you." "He hasn't said he isn't either." "You know the rules. If it's not a yes, you move on." "Don't talk to me about the rules, Eli. We're on chill now." Solana shook her head in exasperation. "Nobody's going to try to stab me for smiling at them." Lowering her voice, she said, "There's a whole great big universe out there. Trixis thinks this is a good idea, and I think she's absolutely right." "There's nothing right about drugging someone. We've both done some wild stuff, but we've never done that. Not ever." Eli shook his head, hardly daring to believe his ears. "I mean, you don't even care about him. Setting aside the whole incest is wincest shit, you are crossing lines to..." Solana whirled around, eyes ablaze. "I am not related to him by blood!" She held his gaze for a moment, then her demeanor took on a note of pleading. "I've been watching the men when we've been out in public, Eli. It's not that they don't like me, they don't even see me. I'm fucking invisible. I tried to approach a cute guy outside of Human Food when we first got here, and I scared him. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? My own species, repulsed by me. So no, fuck you. I don't want to be alone forever. I don't want to grow old without a family, and I don't believe for a second that you understand that." Eli knew his mouth was hanging open. He closed it, but still felt like he'd been kicked in the head. Where the hell was all this coming from? It wasn't the Mint, for damn sure. They'd always played this game with each other, and it had been for fun. What even was this? "Yeah, I thought not." Solana picked up the dress, pushed past him, and was up the hall while he was still trying to figure out what to say. He'd have to warn Vadim. Maybe dump something on the dress. Definitely empty out that spray bottle. Who the hell did she think she was, anyway? Wow. I mean, that could have gone better. The voice came from behind him, and Eli walked around to see Hannah leaning in the hallway. "Where the hell'd you come from?" "Front door." Hannah thumbed behind her before slipping out of her jacket. "The way you two were bonding is no surprise you didn't hear." "Yeah, well..." Eli huffed, before throwing himself down on the sofa. "You could have said something." "And joining the fun? No, thank you." Hannah shook her head, grinning. "I've had a long day, and 2 was all the company that conversation needed." "Yeah, well, it's still rude going around spying on folks." His head had started to pound, and he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Craps! It's hard enough being packed in here like sardines." "Occupational hazard," she said, as she flopped down in one of the chairs. "What?" "Nothing. Just trying it on for size." Hannah shook her head and closed her eyes wearily. "I thought we were on vacation from all this nonsense." "Same." Eli wanted to grouse, but he felt tired. He closed his eyes and lay back, making the world go away. "How did your interview go?" "Got the job. I'll have to tell Mum and Dad in the morning. Thanks for asking." She sounded so weary that Eli opened his eyes. "I mean it. Thank you," she said again, then huffed, I heard what she said about the mint, too. It was pretty cool of you to stick up for Vadim. You're not so bad when you aren't being a jackass.
You flatter me. He tried for snark, but it didn't come out that way. She was right. Sometimes it did get a little stale. Shit. People got butthurt often enough, but he never meant any real harm. Things just got out of hand sometimes. Thanks, I guess. Still, gotta get that stuff off her and dump it down a sink.
I know.
Hannah sighed and forced herself back up.
I'll go grab it now. If I can't find it, she'll give it to me. Or else.
Or else? Eli snorted. Or else what? Hannah wasn't exactly a delicate flower, but in the rain, she could comfortably shelter under Solana's tits. Intimidating the Shovanti girl just wasn't going to happen.
Or else I'll put Nair in her shampoo. Like to see her catch a guy she's bought as an eggplant.
Hannah snorted on her way out of the living room.
That's okay, though. I brought a distraction.
Eli blinked as Hannah disappeared up the hall. She'd do it too. Eli slowly started to grin.
Guess I'm not such a bad influence after all. Though, am I?
If so, why was he here laying low? What Solana had said about Vadim was all wrong. But the rest? So maybe he was a little inconsiderate. So what? There were plenty of bleeding hearts in the world. What good would it do for him to be one? It was easy to pick a fight with Levi because he was always so damn straight. But even if Levi was doing the right thing, that didn't mean he wasn't. He liked being a salesman and making it on his own. He'd proved that he could. But who am I proving it to? It had felt good getting away from the farm. He could do the work, but running a hard-scrabble farm with his big brother, that wasn't for him. People always thought Luke Skywalker was cool, and yeah, he was. But one line had always made sense to him. Luke just isn't a farmer. Damned right, Luke. Course, then Dad and Levi had to turn the farm into something big, but who cared? Even if he did want to go around eating Levi's dust, he still didn't want to be a farmer. It had kind of pissed him off, though. He'd done good in sales. Showed everybody he could stand on his own 2 feet. And then? Levi had to run right past him without even trying. Sure, he cut on Levi a bit, but he always put up with it. It was all in good fun. Friendly competition. Maybe Levi needed a bit of competition to keep him sharp. Maybe, deep down, he enjoyed it. Maybe. It had felt a whole lot nicer having Hannah saying thank you instead of calling him a jackass, though. Maybe Hannah and Solana were both kinda right. It wouldn't hurt to stop cutting up a little. Take care of folks. Be a bit more like the... Well, fuck that. But maybe a bit more like Dad. Except for the drinking. Jesus, that had gone poorly. But that wasn't all his fault. The twins had been rude as hell. No wonder Dad always ragged on him about not touching the stuff. Shit. A few too many and...
Are you Eli?
He opened one eye. Holy fuck! In the instant, there was some primal part of his brain that had forced a scream from his throat. Eli scrambled backwards and fell off the couch faster than he'd ever moved in his life. The biggest fucking lion he'd ever seen was bent over him, and he hadn't even heard the fucker come in. He shot up from behind the couch holding a floor lamp at the ready, his heart pounding in raw terror. Noticing the bow tie, he felt a little silly. A moment later, the bedroom door slammed open as Solana burst into the room.
My name is Past.
The cat guy drew back his lips in a rictus grin, revealing a mouthful of fangs, and nodding to the two of them.
Your sister tells me you Shavash ka akta tak?
No one saw Hannah slip inside Solana's bedroom. Kid, you need to grow up. Not everything will go your way in life and you just gotta roll with it, her Hakakt said.
Pat Veery observed him from under the cushions and bared her fangs at the irony. Dark Mother knew she could feel the bruise all across her hip. The ship settled on the bottom of the bay at a 30-degree incline, but when the lunatic's explosive went off, the yacht rolled. The sudden shift had dropped a cabinet across her side, pinning her in the wreckage. "Don't worry, the whole terrorist alert thing will blow over tomorrow, what with the holiday. You can go out and eat yourself sick then." Tom nodded. "And you'll have the credits to do it." She did snarl then, but it had a note of defiance in it. Her hahakt had also given them the traitor's death they deserved, and saved her from an ignoble fate. She had escaped their plan to set her up as a patsy. At least, with his help. And she still had her bag of valuables. The yacht owned by the Gelf woman who so incensed her hahakt had been filled with trinkets to be looted. She'd just finished stuffing some lovely gold figurines into her bag when... Her hackles rose again at the memory. "There are festivals," Pat Veery muttered glumly. "You know, parties, with interesting things to eat." "Hey, just wait till you taste AV's Roogda." Tom Steinberg chuckled as he poked at his Omnipad. "It was kind of an acquired taste at first, but don't tell her that. Anyway, you like fish, don't you?" "I saw too many of them last night," she growled, though to her ears it had been too much of a mule. She flexed her pelt and claws, letting her Asaic twitch in indignation. "Besides, we gotta move that chandelier, and that means making some calls. The last thing we want is to have it laying around. It needs to be cut up, and Jabba will move the metal. At least, she will once she picks up the phone." "She's probably at a party, eating," she glowered. Her hahakt was right. Not that she had to admit it right away. "What kind of name is Jabba, anyway?" "It's just what I call her. But don't worry, she's a mensch. It's like that old song. Every name's an alias in case somebody... Oh, hey. Yeah, it's me. Sure, joyous if Rory back at ya. And trust me, it's gonna be. Have I got a deal for you?" Pat Veery had no idea what species the mensch were, but the Raoul Godard did sound interesting. Her hahakt had things to teach. She could learn to nosh. After studying her team's stats and the information on Sector 2, Letzi was generally pleased with her options. While none of her group were from the pro teams, there wasn't a player in the tournament who didn't have solid stats. As fleet commander, she had full control of the assault, though the ground commander would have command and control over any planetary action, working her pods for a firefight. She made her selection on what system to jump to. If she'd had the points, assault would have been her option, but Team Ice was good, and a skilled destroyer screen was invaluable. Now she just had to survive with a big enough point spread to make it into round 2. The ground commander, Imperial Houts, was off in a sidebar, where the Rakiri, no doubt about it, the woman wasn't using a voice filter, briefed her pods, who would be loaded aboard a cruiser and ready for bloody combat. That left her in a main chat with her flotilla, a squadron of destroyers, mixed cruisers, and 2 Tier 6 Monarch-class battleships that belonged to her and another player named Tickanote. Sure enough, Team Ice was there with the destroyers, and she noted Kamara and Kazlin's handles, along with Green Ice, Purple Ice, Ubeki Ice, and Ice Swallow. It was a good balance for Tier 6 ships, with an adequate line of battle, but no carrier. That was just as well, for what she had in mind. The problem with Confront mode was that it penalized the attackers. Rather than assaulting a system with fixed defenses and a fleet in being, the defenders got to come in behind the assault group. Sure, it offered the attacker a choice of system, but that was about it. The Tier 6 ships on both teams would model starships for almost 2 centuries ago. The Imperial fleet had always been tough, but so had the Consortium's, and she fully expected if her opposite number spent her points well, then the Consortium team might easily hold an edge in range. Galaxy Conquest Ultimate wasn't like its subsets. Unlike GC Marine and GC Navy, Ultimate offered a full strategic campaign. That was an interesting diversion when you play for fun or subbed out to someone paying hard credits to have you on their team. But for the tournament, all that mattered in the first round was the points and the losses. The losers were done, while the winners with the highest kill-to-loss ratios would move into round 2, taking only their surviving ships and pods with them. Leslie introduced herself to the other 71 players in her assault group, and after a minimum of small talk, she pulled up the map for Sector 2, then announced their entry point for the assault. Imperial Houts really lived up to her name. Not that Leslie blamed her ground team as the complaints came in. The star system, named T162/0, was a cool brown dwarf, a star utterly devoid of any planetary body whatsoever. The ground teams, all 36 women, were stuck in their pods for the duration of the match with nothing to assault, and they were pissed. Letzi let the complaints roll off her like water off a Prelfa's back. This was round 1. Most of the girls here would be wanting to get picked up by one of the pro teams, but looking good on the vid screens didn't mean a dime if you died, and the pro teams wouldn't be serious about recruiting until the finals anyway. All that mattered right now was victory or death, and with the ground team stuck aboard ship, it would make the point spread winner take all. She drew up the system map, laid out her plan, and waited in the sudden silence. It took seconds before Tickanote came back. "You want us to what? That's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard."